Okay, so now that we've got a 3D model, a static mesh of our droid, of our enemy, we're going to start adding some basic AI elements to this. Now, if you remember from the last series, or if you should generally know this, if we drag this into the world, then we can't control it, we can't code it, it's just a 3D object. So I go here, while it looks nice, it sits there, we can't code anything to it. We can enable physics, but we can't code this. So we need to make a blueprint. So I'm going to go back to my content folder, going to go into my blueprints, I'm going to add or import a new blueprint class. And we're going to also make this a character. So click on the character, and we're going to call this enemy droid, and I'll put BP for blueprint at the end as well. Enemy droid blueprint. Open that up, and very similar to when we made our actual character, we're going to have this capsule here. We don't need this to have a camera, because we're not going to actually control this. But what we do need it to have is a body. So I'm going to click on add component, and I'm going to put in a static mesh, and we're going to call this droid body. In the right side here, static mesh, I'm going to set it to the enemy droid. There it is. Now, like before, this is a little big for my liking. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scale it down a little bit. It's a bit more appropriate. I'm going to bring this up to about this level here. Now, right now, the way I've made this, when I initially made it, was facing the wrong direction. So make sure that if you've done the same as me, you rotate this so that it's facing the same direction as this blue arrow down here. Otherwise, when this moves towards you, it'll be moving sideways. So there we go, it's there. Before we continue, if you just want to spawn that into your world and double check how that looks. So if I go up to it now, that's my droid. That's what's going to be following me around. That's what's going to be chasing me. Doesn't do anything just yet, but that's an appropriate size, and I quite like that. So I'm ready to move on. Make sure that your droid is the correct size first, and then we'll move on. Okay, so the code for this, the nodes for this, are fairly simple. So go to the event graph. For now, let's delete the bottom two. We are going to use the event begin play, so leave that there for now. The first thing we're going to do is right click and say add custom event. So we're going to click this one here, and we're going to call this follow player. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is pull a strand out and just say branch. Now to do this, we're going to need to get the distance to the player. The distance, for how far away it is. So off this event begin play, pull a strand, and we're going to say cast to Jedi. Now Jedi is the name of the blueprint that our character is, so that's what we're casting. We're getting Jedi. Pull a strand from the object and just get player character. There we go. And what we're going to do, we're going to right click as Jedi, and we're going to promote this to variable. There we go, we got as Jedi here. And we're gonna leave that for now. Now what we're gonna do underneath in our follow player event that we created, we're going to pull this as Jedi here, pull it in, and get as Jedi. So it says as Jedi. Now first I'm going to pull a strand from this, and I'm going to say get distance 2. See, get distance 2 here. There we go. I'm actually going to plug this in to other actor. There we go. Plug that into other actor. So I held control and plugged that in there. And I'm going to pull a strand from the return value and say more than. That's the more than symbol, which is shift and full stop. And we're going to say float is more than float. Now this is going to be the distance that it will stop from your character. I'm going to say about 200. There we go. And plug that in there. So if the droid is more than 200 units away from the Jedi character, it's going to run this code here. It's going to move to the character, move to the Jedi. And there's quite a simple strand here, or node, sorry. Pull from true, and we're going to say AI move to. And you've got this here, AI move to. Now we've got a couple of different things in here, but we don't need to touch a lot of this. What I will do, I'm going to pull a strand from As Jedi and plug that into the target actor, because that's what we want to look for. We're moving to the Jedi. And we're going to say, what do we want to move? We want to move ourselves. So right click and say self, get reference to self, and plug it in. We're going to move the entire actor, the entire blueprint to that location. And that should be fine. Now, all we're going to do is pull a strand from there, say delay, and we're going to do 0.2. I'm going to keep it at 0.2. So this is going to check every 0.2 seconds whether or not the character, whether or not the blueprint, sorry, the enemy, is 200 units away from the Jedi. So I'm going to pull a strand from here, and I'm going to call the event again, follow player. There's one more thing we need to do just to make sure that this keeps on running, and that's to check again if this fails. So right now, once the AI gets to the character, the code won't run again. It'll say, right, I've got there, that's all I needed to do. So what we want to do, I'm going to move this down just a little bit. Off the false pin here, so if it's already close to the character, wait 0.2 seconds, and then check again. So this means then if the character, or if the enemy has got to the Jedi and it's waiting there for it to move, it will keep on checking whether it needs to move. It won't become complacent and just stay there. And that's all the code we need for that. I'm just going to highlight that, copy it, and we're going to say follow player. That's the code for that. Right now, however, this follow player won't run because we haven't told it to actually do anything just yet. So off the event begin play, just after the set, we're going to call the event for the first time. Call the function there. So the event, the game starts. You create this little variable which we're using down here, and then we call the function for the very first time, which then will always call itself and will always repeat. So let's compile and let's have a look. Now this isn't going to work straight away. If I play this, you'll notice that the droid itself isn't actually moving, and there's a reason for that. We need to tell this droid, this enemy, where it's allowed to go, where it's allowed to walk, where it's allowed to roam. So up in your top left search bar here, if you type in nav mesh, you'll get this nav mesh bounds volume. Now if I drag this in, you'll get this invisible cube. Now I'm going to pull this down into the floor just a little bit, and I'm going to expand it. Let's say about there. Now if you press the P key, you'll see this green glowing area, which stops here, probably because it's no longer in the ground. So if I lower that a little bit more, there you go. So this green area, which you get from pressing the P key, is all of the locations that your AI can move to. So right now it can move anywhere in this big cube. It can even move on top of the roof if it finds a way to get there. So in theory, if I press play now, here it goes. Straight away it starts walking towards me. It gets very, very close. So that's working. Now, right now, you can already see the shadow behind me. It's chasing me at around about the same speed as which I walk, which I don't quite want, because then it makes this droid very hard to avoid and very hard to escape. So there's quite a nice easy way to change that. If you press P again, it'll disable that view. Back into the blueprint, and I'm going to click on the character movement up in this components menu there. Now it'll bring up a lot of settings in here, it'll bring up loads of different things, but what I want to change is this option here, the max walk speed. So currently my character's maximum walk speed is 600, and so is this blueprint's. So if I turn this down to 200, compile, and let's try that again. You see it chases me much slower. This makes this a lot easier to outrun and a lot easier to escape from. Now if you see there, if I walk a little bit further back, it stops. And that stops because I've exited that navigation mesh bounds. So realistically, what you want is for this to stretch to all the feasible areas where this droid can get to. So if I turn P on again. Now, I'd like it to move within most of the area I've got here. So I'm going to actually stretch this out. So it stretches out beyond the temple. There we go. There we go. So that should be able to roam almost at the stage. So it's got a bit of an issue finding its way up here. So I'd have to look at that later on. But it can go around most of this area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the speed up just a little bit. I'm going to give that a test. So turn that back up to 600. And let's go for a walk into the temple, see if the droid follows us. Yep, seems good. Oh, I'm not sure where I went then. I've got a feeling I didn't like that, and I tried to find an alternative way to get to me. So let's see if I can find it. I'm not sure where that went at all. Let's try that again. Keep an eye on it when it comes through here. Okay, so it ran away. I bet it's going to go around and it's going to come through here. There it is. So the AI Move 2 is actually very good in terms of its pathing as well. So I assume if I walk up these steps now, which it doesn't seem to like, it's going to go back around, and it's found an alternate way to get to me. So it doesn't like those steps, but it's going to come around here. There it is, and it's making its way to me. So the AI Move 2 node that we used is actually quite powerful because it doesn't just follow you in a straight line. It won't get stuck on things. It'll actually path around you and make its way to you. So let's turn that off. And I'm going to quickly just change that to, I'll say 300. 200 is a little bit slow. 300. And there we go. That's going to follow me and chase me around. Alright, perfect. So, we've now got basic movement for our AI, and it will follow us around. The next thing I want to add to this is the ability for it to shoot at me. So if it looks at me and it's chasing me, it's going to fire a blaster bolt at my character, which will hopefully do damage. So before we move on to that step though, make sure that your enemy AI is able to follow you. Make sure that your nav mesh is working properly. Again, you can press the P key to double check where the area is that you can walk, or your enemy can walk. And if you are having any issues, go back to the video and double check that you have followed everything perfectly. One thing I will quickly say before ending this video, this nav mesh bounds volume. It's completely fine in this small area here. However, if you've got a very large open world map, be careful how you use this. If you stretch this over a very, very large area, it can take a very long time to calculate all the different routes that something can go. So use the sparingly and be careful if you're going to stretch it over a very large area. Okay, so if your enemy is working correctly, you're now ready to move on to the next video.